Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Isabel and this is my library. Today I bring you a really big book haul. I know it feels like I just filmed a book haul, and maybe it's because I kind of did, but I've purchased a bunch of new books and I can't wait to show you all of them. So I've gone ahead and separated into categories the books in this very big book haul so I can group them together and kind of walk you through all the books that I've recently acquired that have now made it into my library. So I'm going to go ahead and first start off with my book of the month choices. So it feels like I got a lot of book of the month books this month. I do have more than one account. I've been with book of the month for a really long time, and a while back I know they limited the amount of books that you were able to get in your one account. So throughout the years I got a secondary account or a tertiary account, and for the most part I tend to just use now my main account simply because they do allow you to get a bunch of books within your one account. But I did have a birthday this month, so I had my birthday credits that I wanted to use, and they also allowed us to pick our free books for the book of the year. So I feel like there were a couple perks happening this month, which kind of made my book of the month books, the stack, a little bit bigger than usual. So I'll go ahead and start sharing with you the first of the book of the month books that I acquired. And the first one is First Time Caller by BK Borson. So, as you guys know, if you've watched this channel before, you know I'm not a big romance reader. I do enjoy some occasional romances, but romance is really not my go to genre. But this book has been everywhere. I see this book on people's lists on Bookstagram, romances that they're loving. I've also seen a couple YouTubers talking about it. So, I went ahead and picked it up simply because I've heard some pretty good things about it. So I believe in this one, it's pitched as a Sleepless in Seattle inspired love story. I like the sound of that. I like Sleepless in Seattle. And so the main characters we are following appear to be Aiden and Lucy. And I know Aiden is he works like in a, I think it's like a radio talk show or like a romance hotline or something. And he's kind of fallen out of love with love. And obviously, there's some irony there since he is a part of this hotline, right? So there's a little bit of irony there. And I believe Lucy calls in one day asking for advice for her mom, I think. And then that's how they kind of meet. And then new attention is now placed on the hotline, and I guess love ensues. I'm not really sure what tropes this covers. You guys do know that I like going blindly into my books, so that's pretty much all I kind of know. As far as the synopsis of a book goes, I will read the first like little paragraph, if anything. I prefer to not even read that, but obviously since I'm telling you a little bit about the books, I have to read a little bit of it, but I try to avoid getting too much info. But yeah, so this is one of the books I picked up for my book of the month. And then I also went ahead and picked up Liquid, a Love Story. And it is by Mariam Ramani. And this is one of those I really have not seen online a lot. At least no one that I really follow on Bookstagram or Booktube is really talking about it that I know of. But one, I loved this cover. I really enjoyed the pixelated feel of it. So immediately I was drawn into the cover. And I think it's supposed to be kind of funny, and all I really know about this is that we are following this young Muslim woman who is trying to like marry rich or something. So she makes like a list with like a spreadsheet, and she's going to go on like 100 dates with like, I guess, eligible bachelors to meet the man of her dreams, who, of course, should be rich according to her plans. And yeah, that's pretty much all I know about it. I know that it is a nameless narrator, so I find that interesting. and I think the narrative style appealed to me. You know how book of the month gives you like a little bit of a snippet of read the first page or read a little part of the book or something, and I enjoyed the way that this was written. So I'm looking forward to this. Again, it's something out of my comfort zone. It's not really a book that I would normally pick up, but I was very intrigued for various reasons. So we'll see when I can get to this one, and I'll see if anyone else talks about it on their channel. And if any of you have read this or heard anything about it, let me know because I'm very intrigued. So my third book of the month pick was Our Infinite Fates by Laura Stephen, and this cover is so beautiful. Look at that gold foiling. It's stunning. So this seems to have a little bit of a speculative element, which is the main reason I went ahead and picked it. In this, we are following a woman named Evelyn who has had multiple past lives, and apparently she can remember all of them. And in each of her lives before her 18th birthday, she is murdered and she doesn't get to live out the rest of that life, and it has something to do with like a spirit that is attached to hers or something like that. So obviously what drew me into this, besides this stunning cover, is that speculative living multiple lives, reincarnation. I think that's a wonderful premise for this. I think this might be fantasy, I'm not really sure, which is again something out of my comfort zone. These three have been unusual choices for me, but I think I was just feeling adventurous that day or something that I decided to pick it up. I have seen a couple people posting about it, but honestly, I haven't really heard if it's good or not. I don't even know what people are rating it. But I have seen the cover. I have seen the cover quite often. I just don't know if people are liking it or not. But I hope I end up enjoying it. And this is definitely something I'm very interested in. So my next choice was The Women by Kristen Hanna. And I will admit, the only reason I went ahead and picked this is because it was one of our free books choices, one of our free book choices, because it is finalist or a contender for the book of the year. It was. I am not a Kristen Hanna fan. I don't by that mean that I dislike Kristen Hanna. I just have never read Kristen Hanna, believe it or not. It is not my type of book. I do not enjoy historical. I am not particularly interested and very sad kind of books. If the books that I end up reading do have some sad moments or sad elements, I'm okay with it. But for the most part, she's just an author that is completely out of my genre of interest. Historical fiction probably is my least read genre of everything. And yeah, so I picked it up because, of course, it was one of our choices. I ended up having a lot of the other books, so I picked this one up in the hopes of maybe giving Kristen Hanna a shot. And if not, I know a lot of people love Kristen Hanna, so I'll be able to quickly pass this on to one of my friends or drop it off in a little free library because I know it will find someone to love it and appreciate it. But I've never really read from her before, so I have no idea if I'll even like the writing style. But I do know that these are very, very popular. Her books are very popular. I believe this is during the Vietnam War. I think this is when this is set in like the 60s. She joins, yeah, the main character joins the Army Nurse Corps, and that's really all I know about it. But it's taking place during war. I'm not particularly interested in war books either. And yeah, so I'll probably give it a shot at one moment, but if any of my friends want to immediately borrow it or they're interested in it, I think I'm just gonna maybe pass this on. But if you've read it and you think I should try Kristen Hanna, if you're a Kristen Hanna fan out there, let me know. Let me know what I should start with. If you're, if you really think that maybe I would enjoy one of her books, let me know which one you think I might like. This one I don't think is gonna be maybe an introductory one for me. Uh, I'm not sure. But yeah, so I went ahead and picked this one up. So the next one I went ahead and picked up is Scythe and Sparrow by Bryn Weaver. And I picked it up simply because I have the other two books. I have not read the other two books that are part of this trilogy. I'm not going to tell you anything about this one in case you haven't read the other ones. I don't really know what the other ones are. I don't want to spoil it for myself either. But I believe it's like a couple that they're like assassins or something. I'm not really sure. But I picked it up just because I had room in my box for it. And if I end up reading the first one and liking it, I would like for all three versions of my book to be book of the month for the trilogy. So I just went ahead and picked it up since I have the other two already. And whenever I start the series, if I decide to continue, then I'll be happy that I have all the book of the month versions of it. I do like for my books to kind of match. And yeah, I went ahead and picked it up. I know for the first book, there's kind of like mixed responses out there. Some people really love it. I know there's others who think it's very over the top or they don't really like it. I think it's a polarizing kind of read, which is probably why I haven't already picked it up. But yeah, let me know if you like the first book or if you've read the series and if you think I'll like it. So the next book that I picked up, I believe, was also one of the books that we could choose from the best books of the year, and that is The Lion Women of Tehran. And again, this is a little bit out of my comfort zone, but this is a book I think that I would definitely enjoy simply because I have read some books that take place in this part of the world and have really enjoyed learning more about culture and life in this part of the world. So I believe in this one, it's taking place in the 50s, which I'm not thrilled about because it is older, but I think like years pass. So it's not all in the 1950s. I might be wrong, but I'm not really sure. But we are following this little girl named Ellie, and her father dies. And then she and her mother have to move to another place, and then it's kind of like a Bildungsroman for her. I believe it's like her um growing up, loss of innocence kind of story. So I think I would enjoy it. I have really loved Khaled Hosseini's books, which are also Bildungsroman books that follow young main characters. And A Thousand Splendid Suns, in particular, follows two female characters and their journeys, and we get to learn a lot about the culture and stuff like that. So I think this might be a similar reading experience. Hopefully, it's not as sad and tragic as A Thousand Splendid Suns is, but I do enjoy, for the most part, books that take place in other countries and I can learn a little bit about the culture and the way of life in other places. I just hope it's not completely historical fiction. I hope we kind of move generationally through different points in time. But this is another one of those that I have heard great things from booktubers that I follow. So this one I'll definitely pick up at some point, and I think I will really enjoy. So finally, for book of the month, there's a book that's in my wheelhouse, and that is Count My Lies by Sophie Stava. And this is a thriller, so I'm sure I will end up liking it. I also know that this is, I believe, Good Morning America's March selection, if I'm not mistaken. It might be another uh, reading book club that I follow, but I think it's that one. So this is a thriller. We are following what I think is also a dislikable main character or unreliable main character. And her name is Sloane, and she's pitched as being like this compulsive liar kind of a person. And then it says that one afternoon she sees like a little girl crying, and she pretends that she's like a nurse. They're at the park or something, and she pretends she's a nurse, and she tends to the little girl's wounds. She has something with her, like a bee stings her or something. And then like she starts this lie, and she ends up becoming the nanny for the little girl. And so then from that point forward, I think it just turns into like a domestic thriller kind of a thing. And it doesn't sound super original, right? I mean, I'm sure I've read a ton of books with an unreliable narrator that's like a liar. But it's been a minute, I think, since I've read one of those. And I always pick whatever thriller book of the month is giving. I enjoy thrillers. Domestic thrillers are not my favorite type, but I do enjoy them. And if they're done well, they work out. I don't think I've read anything by this author, though. Yeah, I don't think I've read anything from her. But I'm excited for this one. I think, you know, At worst, it'll probably just be like a, average, mediocre kind of thriller, like a, 3-star kind of a thriller. But hopefully there's something very cool, and hopefully it has cool plot twists and all of that. And that's Count My Lies. So the next book I picked for book of the month was Ready or Not by Cara Bastone, or Bastone, I think. And this cover is so beautiful. So I think this was a February choice, but I did not pick it up. And I've seen a lot of this book around booktube and Instagram, and I've heard great things about it. I think people are really loving it. And again, I don't jump or pre-order romances. I kind of wait, and if that particular book has some hype built around it or people are really loving it, then I go ahead and usually pick them up. And so in this one, I believe we are following this young woman named Eve, who is pretty content and happy with her life. She has, her own place, and she has a solid, stable job. And then one night, she has like a random one night stand, and then she ends up pregnant as a result of that. That's really all I know about this one. I absolutely love the cover of this book. There's just something about that hand painted kind of style, and I love the colors and I love the font. So it's really appealing to me. I really hope I enjoy the story. um yeah, and I've heard really, really nice things, great things about this one. So I think it'll be one that I like. And then my last book of the month, I told you I had a lot of them. I don't know what happened. The last book that I chose for my book of the month option was Jane and Dan at the End of the World by Colleen Oakley. So I think this is like a little bit funny or like satirical or something like that. And I think there might be like a speculative element. I'm not really sure. So I believe in this, we are following a couple who's been married for like 19 years. They're about to make it to their 20th wedding anniversary, and they're not really, or at least Jane is not really feeling the relationship anymore. So they go out to this restaurant, and she is actually planning on telling him that she wants a divorce when something happens at the restaurant, and I think they're being held hostage or something. But the speculative part is that while that's happening, like apparently she wrote a book that she never published or something, that had that element, that happens, that there's a people eating in a restaurant, and then there's a hostage situation that happens. And so they're sitting there like, what, this is just like my book, like what is happening? And that's something I really enjoy in books. And I know I didn't mention that in my 2-part series of things I love in books, so I'm thinking I might need to like think of other things I love and come up with a part 3 to that series. But there's something that I love about when like weird or unusual things happen to a character, and they're like, how is this possible? Like, this is impossible. How could this possibly be happening? And I think this book kind of has that. So I like it. And of course, I'm hoping that by the time this whole thing is over, they will have rekindled their love. I'm not really sure if this is even like a love story, but I'm hoping they'll be like, oh yeah, like I guess we're, really meant to be here. We'll be together forever, after they have endured this experience together. And I think it should be kind of funny. I'm anticipating it being comedic. So, yeah. So I picked this one just because I was interested in that weird speculative part. And those were all the books for book of the month that I picked for March. If you also get your book of the month books, what did you order this month? I would love to know. Um, I'm sure you got one of these because I ended up getting everything, I think. Um, so surprisingly for Aardvark, I only picked one book, which normally Aardvark is the one that I end up like getting all 3 of them because I tend to like a lot of their selections. But I think this month 2 of the books I think I had already pre-ordered or something. And that's kind of what sucks sometimes about pre-ordering books. Like, I'm a big fan of pre-ordering books, but a lot of times I regret it after if it ends up being an Aardvark book of the month or Nightworms or book of the month. So yeah, but sometimes I'm so passionate about a book that I end up kind of pre-ordering it, right? So my only aardvark selection was The Strange Case of Jane O by Karen Thompson Walker. And this one might it has psychological elements. I'm not really sure if it's a thriller or not, but basically we are following a character named Jane, which is kind of weird because I'm thinking Jane Doe. I'm wondering if that has something to do with it. But she basically has been having like amnesia, and she has premonitions and hallucinations and just like some weird things. So she goes to see a psychiatrist, and then a few days after that visit, she goes missing. And I'm really not really sure if she's gone for like a day or something, but then when she reappears, she has no memory or recollection of what happened during the time that she was missing. But she does end up having visions of like this man. It says visions of a young man who died 20 years ago, and he's trying to warn her of something. So after she goes missing and she comes back, she keeps having um these like premonitions or these like visions with this man, and she really can't piece it together. So I think this is like a psychological thriller. I'm thinking that's where this goes. um it's described as harrowing and riveting, mesmerizing, haunting, sublime. I really don't even know, I don't remember right now what genre this is a part of, but it seems very, very interesting. So that was the one that I picked for my aardvark selection. Now I'm going to move to the books that I ended up getting as a part of my book shopping vlog. So my husband took me book shopping to some local bookstores in my area, bookstores I had never gone to. We didn't really know about them. He kind of researched them and found them, and surprised me and took me to them as a birthday kind of celebration. And it was so much fun. I actually vlogged that experience. So if you haven't seen that vlog, I'll go ahead and put it in the cards so that you can check it out. But yeah, these are the things that I went ahead and got there. And I'm just going to briefly tell you about them because I do talk about them in that vlog. One of the things I found was The Amazing Adventures of Father Brown by G.K. Chesterton. And I happen to love Father Brown. So, pretty recently, I want to say maybe like a year ago, maybe like 8 months ago, my husband and I discovered the Father Brown series. I believe it airs on BBC. I think that's where it airs. But we recently discovered it and I fell in love with it. It is just the coziest little mystery series. In it, we are following the character of Father Brown, who is a priest, and he has a knack for solving murders. And he's just adorable, and all of his friends that are in each of the episodes with him are very endearing. And so this past Christmas, my husband bought me one of the collection of books of the different stories that has obviously inspired the TV show. But then when I went to the old Florida bookshop, I was able to pick this one up. And this one is from like the 60s. So it's very vintagey. It has like 10 little stories of Father Brown, and I just thought this was the cutest thing. And yeah, I picked that up there. So then in another one of the stores that we visited, I picked up this collection of essays, critical essays on Emily Dickinson and Emily Dickinson's poetry. I'm a big fan of Emily Dickinson. I teach a lot of her poems in my AP Literature and Composition class, and I just found it to be incredibly fortunate that I was able to find this collection out in the wild, and it was only $2. And yeah, it just kind of has different studies on her works. So, and this is also an older collection as well. Then I also was able to buy Vampire Breath uh, for $2. So I collect Goosebumps. I have most of the Goosebumps books from my childhood and the ones that I was missing. I've tried collecting throughout the years, so I went ahead and bought this one. I will soon be doing a video showing you my Goosebumps collection, and yeah, I was happy to find this one on the wild. It's in really good condition. And then I also found for $2 The Mystery of the Laughing Shadow, and this is a Three Investigators mystery. I really loved reading these as a child. I used to read them with my grandmother all the time, and they were just like a lot of fun. And then the last thing I was able to pick up is actually not in that vlog, because although I recorded it, I lost the audio for that one. I don't know what happened. That I was recording that portion of that vlog and I lost all the audio for it. So you actually haven't seen this, but I was able to find, incredibly so, this collection of the Chronicles of Narnia, and it is that vintage version of it. So this is my first read of this book. Let me go ahead and pull out The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. When I first read this as a little kid, it was one of these versions. I believe these are really old, and I'm sure they're like reprints of it. Let me see if I find a copyright for this one. So yeah, this one is from 1970, so a long time before I was born. But this one's from 1970. But I read one just like this one, and it's crazy because recently I had been looking online. I looked on Amazon to find like a collection of the Chronicles of Narnia, and all the versions were very modern looking. I have a modern version of it, of all of the original books, the 7 books, but I wanted these. I either wanted something like hardcover and like very like beautiful looking or whatnot, or I wanted these vintage ones that I read as a child. And I found this in the wild, and I was so happy because I paid only $15 for this collection, and they are in pristine condition, and it was only $15, believe it or not. 15 bucks. And I looked online and on eBay and all of that, they're way more expensive. So I think I got a good deal. And honestly, I was just so happy to find them that I would have paid more. But I was very happy with this find. And The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is one of my favorite books of all time. So those were the books that I found on my book shopping vlog. I also went ahead and got a couple in that same vlog. I also went ahead and found a couple books in a little free library, some Goosebumps books, but I ended up having a lot of them, so I'm gonna go ahead. I put them back in my pile of books to trade for or donate, so that's where those are. But if you're interested in seeing them, you can watch my vlog and see what they were. So the next category of books that I am hauling are books that I bought because they just tempted me. I couldn't resist, and I either got some of them online, others I bought on some of my trips to Barnes and Noble. So yeah, let me go ahead and walk you through these. I went ahead and got The Party by Natasha Preston, and I'm just a sucker for Natasha Preston's ideas, the way her books look, what they sound like. They all just seem super interesting to me. So I have a bunch of Natasha Preston books, even though I've only read one of them, and it was not a favorite of mine. I don't even remember. I think I gave it like a 2.5. The only one I read was The Island, and it was something that I think I would have loved. Like the premise of it sounded like something I would love, and I ended up not liking it. But I'm hoping that the next time I pick up on Natasha Preston, I end up liking it. So in this one, we are following a group of kids in an English countryside, and they have gathered together in this remote castle to have a secret party that is destined to be like the best party in spring break. Um, and it's funny because I'm on spring break now, so maybe I should pick it up and read it. But then as they're all there at the party, one of them dies. And obviously the party goes sideways and more bodies continue appearing. If you know me, you know that is something that I love. That whole people gather together in an isolated close circle mystery kind of way, bodies start dropping, you have to figure out who done it before your next, high stakes kind of a thing. So this is supposed to be a book that I love, and this is the thing with Natasha Preston. The island one was like in a theme park or like a fair, and it had a reality TV show component, things that I love. So every time I see one of her books, I end up picking it up simply because I am hopeful that I'll end up loving it. And so this one just sounded too good for me to pass up on. So let me know if you've read this one. Let me know if you've read Natasha Preston. Let me know if you like her stuff. Let me know if the other books are better than The Island. I don't know. Talk to me. Let me know, because I don't want to give up on her because her premises are like things that I love. So I want to keep trying her out. So this next book I picked up is The Secret Lives of Booksellers and Librarians: True Stories of the Magic of Reading by James Patterson and Matt Evershawn. I had never heard of this book before, had never seen this book before, but I did see it in my last trip to Barnes and Noble, and there was just something about the cover that really appealed to me. And I love stories that follow authors or booksellers or librarians or that have to do with reading. And yeah, I kind of wanted to pick it up. I think this should be like a fast read. It's divided into like little vignettes, like little different stories, and I kind of like that because they're very quick to be consumed. So I'm hoping that they are inspiring, and that they make me fall in love even more with reading and books and everything bookish. So the next book I picked up was Compound Fracture by Andrew Joseph White. And I believe this is YA, although I've heard it reads more like adult. And I've heard it's incredibly, incredibly horrific. I've heard it's very graphic, and I loved the cover. I kind of blindly bought it based on some booktuber recommendations. Apparently it's like a very loved book. All I know is that in it we are following a young main character who comes out as trans to his family, and they have like information about like someone who was to blame for like an accident or something like that. And yeah, that's really all I know. It has to do with like minors or people like working in the country and stuff like that. I don't really know much about it, and it's, again, since it's horror, I don't really want to read too much of the premise. But I've heard great things about this book, and I was very like intrigued by the cover. So yeah, that's why I went ahead and got this one. So if you have read this, let me know. Let me know if you liked it. So the next book I picked up was The Swifts, and A Dictionary of Scoundrels by Beth Lincoln. And I'm always in the mood for a fun little middle grade, and this one seemed to be super cool. Apparently, in this family, when a child is born, they give them a name and a definition to go along with it. And they have to like keep true to the definition of their name and such. And so, for example, in it, we are following Shenanigan Swift. And so I just think it's adorable that her character is Shenanigan. I'm hoping she gets into a lot of shenanigans. And yeah, I just thought it was so beautiful. And it has like adorable illustrations. And there's just something about a witty kind of name, and the fact that it's dictionary related. I thought that was going to be like there would be a lot of puns and wordplay in this. And I went ahead and picked it up for middle grade March. I don't know if I'll get to read it because we're already halfway, a little bit over halfway through this month, but I am definitely going to try to get to it at some point. I think that's Shenanigan. She's adorable. Um, So yeah, I went ahead and picked this one up, and I'm excited to read it. So the next thing I went ahead and ordered was Nerve Endings by Keelan Patrick Burke. I am a fan of his writing. I have read about 2 or 3 of his books, and I own a lot of his other books. I believe this is his newest release. I saw him talk about it online and immediately went ahead and ordered it. This is a collection of short stories, I believe. Yeah, it is a collection of short stories. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think he's a wonderful horror writer. I have read some of his novellas before, and they are absolutely wonderful. Sour Candy is one of those great ones that is always in the forefront of my mind. It's one of my favorite works of his. And he's great. He's wonderful to follow online, and he's a lot of fun, and he interacts with his fans. And as soon as I found out he had a new collection out, I went ahead and ordered it. Now it's called Nerve Endings. So the next book I went ahead and picked up is called Getting Away with Murder by Catherine Foxfield. And I do have another book by this author that I have yet to read, but her books have a lot of the premises that I end up liking. I first heard about this from the channel Horror Sickness. I believe it was in a video recommending books and films that were kind of like Squid Game. So immediately I went ahead and placed an order for this. I love Squid Game. And as you guys know, I love anything with a game element to it, especially if it's high stakes games. So I went ahead and ordered this based on her recommendation. And yeah, basically it's like a high-tech escape room, and it is being transferred from like the video game version of it. They've decided to like implement it into like a real life person kind of game, real life simulation, and then all of them are together, and basically only one of them can survive, because the video game is called Soul Survivor. So only one of them can survive. And so I also like that the back pitches it as the rebel, the know-it-all, the princess, the jock, the geek, the weirdo, the star, the artist, and the criminal. I love that when we have like um a game and each of the characters is like a stereotype or represents like a particular like type of person. I know Lucy Foley, her books also do that, like the bride and the groom and the best friend, like everyone has like a role that they play, and that kind of affects like, you know, their impact on the mystery or the game or whatnot. So yeah, I'm looking forward to reading this one. So the next book I picked up was Tell Me What You Did by Carter Wilson. And I went ahead and picked this one up as it is one of Gabby's picks for the book troop. And it sounds so interesting, guys. So in this, we are following a character named Poe Webb who has a podcast. And in this podcast, she invites people, promising them anonymity and such. She invites them so that they can confess to a crime they've committed or something that they have done. And she doesn't promise them that they will be safe or they won't be caught, but she does promise them fame and fortune, all these other things, right? So one day, there's a person who shows up and he claims to have been the murderer of her mother. He says he's the one who killed her mother, and she's struck, like she's in shock because she ended up killing that man, the man that murdered her mother. So she's like, who are you then? So that's kind of all I know about this. That's really all I am interested in knowing, because this seems like it's going to be an incredibly interesting and fast paced read. And I do enjoy things with an element of a podcast. That is something that I do like. So this has that as well. And I think this is going to be great. So the next book that I went ahead and bought is The Extraordinary Disappointments of Leopold Berry by Ransom Riggs. This is a book I bought solely because of the cover. So you guys know I'm a big fan of vintage things, anything that is reminiscent of the 80s or the 90s, anything vintagey always draws my attention. The fact that this looks like a tape with the sleeve cover is brilliant. So I went ahead and picked it up immediately because of the way that it looked. And when I just looked a little bit ahead, and read some parts of the synopsis, it sounded really interesting. So in this, we're following the 17-year-old boy who starts to see like weird things happening around him. Like it mentions like there's a person going to a parking meter, and he's putting into the meter like a tooth instead of like a coin, and just like very weird random things. And then he remembers that these things are kind of from a TV show that he watched when he was a little kid, and it was a TV show called Max's Adventures in Sunderworld. And so he remembers that when his mom died and he was 12, he found a VHS tape that had a recording of the last season of the show or something. And that's kind of all I know. Now the things are kind of manifesting themselves in his everyday life. That's pretty much all that I know. And that's really all I want to know, because it seems like it's going to be weird. It has a speculative component to it, and it has all of these vintage vibes. So yeah, I've never seen anyone talking about this book. If you've heard about it, or if you've read it, please let me know what you thought. I can't wait to dive into this, and it looks so nice. This feels so real right here, this part. And yeah, I'm excited for this one. So the next book I went ahead and got was The Dream Hotel by Layla Lalami. And this is actually a read with Jenna pick, which is one of the main reasons I picked it up. However, I was already interested in this book from before. I know it was on my list of anticipated releases. I was very excited to read this when it was before it even came out. And as soon as I heard it be pitched, I was like, okay, I need to read this. And now that it's a read with Jenna book, I'm very excited. So apparently, um this is taking place in the near future, right? So this feels like dystopian. I think this is a dystopian book. So they can basically tap into people's brains or something, and they can know what people are dreaming and stuff like that. So all I know is that Sarah, the main character, is one day going through the airport. I guess she's going through TSA or something. um they call it something else, yeah, risk assessment administration. So she's going through this place, and they stop her, and they tell her that it's because they are aware that she will soon commit a crime, so they are detaining her before she does that. And says that they use the data from her dreams combined with the algorithm to determine that she's an imminent risk for committing a crime. And so she's then arrested or whatnot. And that just sounds so cool to me. And the dream hotel, like, do they take them to a hotel? Do they take them to a place? Like, people who have been arrested like this? Like, I don't really know what that is, but that's mostly because I've only read the first little paragraph. Like, I'm not reading more, but I'm very intrigued. I love the speculative component. This sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. And I love a good dystopian book with heavy social commentary and all of that. So the next book I picked up because it is Morning America YA choice for the month of March, and it is called The Other Where Post, and it is by Emily J. Taylor. And I believe this is fantasy, and it's YA. And in this, we are following a girl named Maeve, and she lost like her dad, and she has to go by another name now because her father committed a crime. And so she's lived the rest of her life trying to forget where she came from, her past, the things that her father did. And then one day she receives like a mysterious letter saying that her father was innocent of the crime, like he did not commit the crime that he was accused for. And so she then becomes an apprentice for a post where they like magically enchant letters and send letters to like other worlds, I believe. Um and then there's obviously something about her identity and her father's identity that she has to kind of figure out from that point forward. So it sounds like a loss of innocent story, like a Bildungsroman following this young little girl and her trying to piece together her identity and maybe solve the mystery of what really happened with her father. And of course, all of this interwoven with fantastical elements, magical elements. And yeah, I'm excited. Even though I don't read a lot of fantasy, I think this should be a lot of fun, and I'm excited to give it a shot. And so the next thing that I picked up was the annotated Phantom Tollbooth. So I didn't even know this existed, right? I've been a very big fan of the Phantom Tollbooth since I was like in the fifth or sixth grade. When I read the Phantom Tollbooth, I became enamored by the story. This is one of my favorite books from when I was a little kid. And I also remember, I believe it was sixth grade. I remember my sixth grade teacher having us read the book, and then she showed us the movie. And I loved the movie that it had elements of animation, but also real actors, and that was so impressive to me as a little kid. And I love the book. I have the original book, but I stumbled across this annotated version, right? And so it has the original text, right? But in addition to that, it has like sidebars with commentary, with annotations, and I couldn't be happier. I cannot wait to reread this. I haven't reread this in a few years. I have reread it as an adult, and I have watched the movie as an adult, but it's been a few years. So I'm due for a reread simply because it's a book that I love so much. And it basically has like footnotes. Each of the pages has information either about the illustrations or about the author or commentary. And I find that wonderful because I want to know more. I want to know more about the story and the inspiration behind it and all of that. For those of you not familiar with the Phantom Tollbooth, basically it's a children's book where we are following this main character, this little boy who one day leaves school and he finds in his house like this box that gets delivered, and inside the box is like a little car and like a little toll booth, and the moment he crosses, he goes to like another world. And it is a wonderful fantastical world. There's a lot of interesting comments about words and numbers and our language, and it feels almost a little bit like if you're a fan of like Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, I think you would love the Phantom Tollbooth because it does have those elements of fantasy and animals that talk and things like that. But it's also very good with like wordplay, and so think of it something synonymous to that. It's kind of like that. But it's just a wonderful story, so I'm excited to have purchased this annotated version, and I think I'm going to display it like this somewhere on my shelf because it's beautiful. So the next thing that I went ahead and purchased was The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. Have about 5 or 6 versions of this book. I did not have this cloth bound version of it though, and I really love these, and this one in particular is stunning. So I decided to get a brand new one. I am going to start reading this right after we come back from spring break. I am starting to read this with my students. It's their last novel of the year, and I haven't read it in about 2 or 3 years, and every 2 or 3 years I feel like I'm due for a reread of books that I teach. And so I went ahead and picked this one up in the hopes of going through it, annotating everything from scratch. Yes, I will annotate this pristine, beautiful version of it, but it's just what I do. And I do like that this version at the beginning has a lot of important information. It has an intro, so it has this very long introduction. It also has this chronological uh, listing of Oscar Wilde's life. It also has references to some literary criticism, and then this is the beginning of it. And The Picture of Dorian Gray is one of my favorite books. I don't know if you've read it or not. If you haven't, it's absolutely wonderful. uh, we are following in this book Dorian Gray and Basil and Lord Henry. Those are the three main characters. And Basil is a painter who is obsessed with painting Dorian Gray. Dorian Gray is like the most beautiful Adonis like man in the world. He feels like Dorian is his muse. And Lord Henry is friends with Basil. And when he meets Dorian, he kind of takes him on this existential crisis, if you will, because he mentions to Dorian the ephemeris nature of his youth and his beauty. And he basically tells Dorian that he will never be as young and beautiful as he is at that moment when they're having that conversation. And that clearly has an effect on Dorian. And some very speculative things start to happen. And yeah, I think that's all I really want to tell you about this. But it is a Faustian legend. It features a Faustian pact. So if you're into those things, then this is a beautiful gothic uh, book, and I highly, highly recommend it. So the next book that I got was Lie or Die, and this is also on the recommendation of Horror Sickness. She mentioned this also in that same video where she talks about books that are like Squid Game. And the way that this book is presented, I'm just gonna tell you. It says The Traitors meets Knives Out. I'm just going to let you think of that for one moment. I absolutely love both of those things. The Traitors is one of my favorite reality TV shows. I mean, if you haven't seen it, you should. I think there's 3 seasons out already. I believe there's 3 seasons out already. If you haven't seen The Traitors, it's absolutely wonderful. Um, it's a group of reality TV stars that are put together in this castle in Scotland, and 2 or 3 or more of them are chosen to be traitors, and the rest are faithfuls. And then the faithfuls have to figure out who's a traitor and vote them out before the traitors murder them, and they murder someone every night. It's a lot of fun. And Knives Out, I'm sure you've heard of. I'm a big fan of the movies. That whole franchise is wonderful. And I don't think there could be anything that I like more than those two things, right? And so the premise of the book says there's 10 strangers trapped in a television studio, and there's 42 remote cameras, and they can't trust anyone. And that's basically the premise of this. And that's all I know, and that's all I want to know, because how could I not love it when it's being compared to two of those incredible things. So the next 2 books that I purchased, I actually purchased at the Strand bookstore in New York City. I actually just came back from New York City a day ago. Yeah, I came back not yesterday, the day before. And the Strand is one of my favorite bookstores in New York City. If you've never been and you ever do go to New York City, please pay it a visit. It is just absolutely beautiful. And so, one of the things that I purchased there was this copy of The Phantom of the Opera. I have to take the sticker out in a little bit. The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. I have read this before in the past, and I love it. I just don't have like a pretty version of the book, and I think this one is just is it's beautiful. Um so I'm sure you're familiar with the Phantom of the Opera story, so I'll just tell you that the novel is actually a bit different from what you would imagine it to be based on if you've seen the musical or you've watched the movie versions of this. This really focuses a lot on the mechanisms, the machinery, the contraptions of the trapdoors of the opera house, and the mystery of how the phantom moves throughout the opera house. And it is wonderful. I really, really enjoyed that aspect of it, which is really not well translated into the musicals in the movies. And this one, it was a very shocking thing for me when I had seen the musical before. I had seen the musical down here as well as in New York City, and I had seen the movie. And then I picked up the book to read it, and it was very different. I found it to be very different, but really, really good. So if you haven't picked it up, you should. And then the second book that I bought on the Strand is this, and I have no idea what this is. It's a blind date with a book, and all it says is it's murder, mystery, and identity. Now, I love these things. They had so many of these blind dates with a book there. I wanted to buy a bunch of them. It's always very risky for me to get these because I have so many books. As you guys know, I have over 2,000 books in my personal library. So the chances of me not having this are slim to none. And of course, I know if I end up having it, I'll pass it on to a friend or exchange it, um, trade it with someone, or leave it in a little free library. But my hope is that this will be my new favorite murder mystery book that deals with identity, right? I'm not going to open it here. I have some plans for this, but I will let you guys know in another video or a short. I think I'm going to do a short. I will go ahead and open it, and I will let you know what I ended up getting. But isn't that beautiful? And they all feel hand drawn, which is my favorite part. So we'll see what I ended up getting here in a few days. So the next few books that I went ahead and bought were because of Bookstagram. So I do follow some lovely people on Bookstagram, and I like supporting various authors and buying their books. And yeah, these are the next few that I'm going to share with you. So this first one I ended up getting is called Black Card Black by JD Midnight, and I believe part 2 is coming out soon. At least that's what has been posted on the account. And I think part 2 is going to be like a choose your own adventure version of this. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is like a horror erotica. I'm not really sure. But I think this is the genre for this. And basically it has to do with like unfulfilled desires, and in creepy, mysterious kind of ways. So this is not normally something I pick up or that I read, but I'm very excited to check it out. Next, I went ahead and got volume 1 and 2 of Bumps in the Night by A.D. Aro, and one of them is called In the Mall of Madness and Nostalgic Nightmare. And these are very reminiscent of Goosebump books. They are middle grade horror books, and they are just so much fun. Look how cool that artwork is. And so I'm very excited to read these. In the same vein, I went ahead and got Trapped in the Creepy Carnival, which is a Fright Factory book by E.D. Black. And again, I think this is like taking place in a carnival or like in a fair, and it is like horror for a younger audience. And I love anything that takes place in an amusement park. And yeah, it seems like it's going to be a lot of fun. And so this other one, I've seen a lot on Bookstagram, lots of people reading this and loving it, and I had never heard of it before. And this is called Marionette by Antonia Rachel Ward. And basically, in this, we are following this character named Cece, who is the main attraction at this erotic seance kind of a thing. And that's really all I know about it. I don't really want to find out more, but it seems like something that I'll really enjoy. And yeah, if you've read any of these, I'd love to hear your thoughts on them. The next thing that I went ahead and purchased is A Calendar of Wisdom by Leo Tolstoy. And I actually saw this on a fellow booktuber's video. Shout out to the reading room for talking about this book. And when he mentioned it, I really thought that it would be something that I would enjoy. And basically, this is set up with different dates, and it has like philosophical quotes and thoughts. Some are biblical, some are literary in nature, some are various books of wisdom from various parts of the world. So for each of the days, you have like quotes from different sources. And there's like a really good mix. There's Indian wisdom, there's biblical quotes, Chinese wisdom. There's quite a few philosophical parts. There's some from Marcus Aurelius. There are Chinese proverbs. So yeah, I find that it is definitely like a cool thing to look at every day, and maybe like write a little bit about it, or choose one of the quotes to do something with it. I also like the application of this um, for my classroom. I also think I can use it as like bell ringers, pick one of the quotes and have my kids do a quick free write on it. So I mostly wanted it for that, for ease of free writing and stuff like that. And I think it's going to be a good choice and a good addition to what I already do in the classroom. Next, we have a book that my husband bought for me when we went to Barnes and Noble recently. And this is a book that I'm incredibly intimidated by. I have never read anything by this author. I apologize to those of you who might be offended. And I have no idea when I'm going to get to this. But yeah, my husband bought me this. My husband bought me this. House of Earth and Blood, Crescent City. Sarah J. Maas. Never read anything from Sarah J. Maas. This book is incredibly long. um he's a big fantasy person, and whenever I tell him I want to read more fantasy, he likes that. So I think this is him telling me that he would like to see me read and review fantasy in my channel, maybe a little bit. I don't know, guys. It's intimidating. I don't know what to tell you. I'm sure a lot of you have read this. How do you feel about this? Is this completely out of my wheelhouse? I don't know. Um, or is this romantasy also? I mean, I don't know. I don't know anything about these. They're beautiful, but it's very overwhelming. But I'm hauling it, and it's a gift from my husband. So now there's extra pressure for me to read it. And the last thing I'm sharing with you guys, because this video has gone on very long, is I went ahead and bought 4 more books to add to my collection of Junji Ito. So if you guys don't know, I'm not really sure if you guys are aware, but I'm a big Junji Ito fan. I'm a big manga person. I'm a big graphic novel person. And Junji Ito is one of my favorite writers of all time. I love his works. And so I went ahead and ordered these that I did not have. So I went ahead and got Frankenstein. And I went ahead and got Allie. I went ahead and got Love Sickness. How beautiful these are. And Mimi's Tales of Terror. And Mimi has appeared before in something that I've read. Now I don't remember if it was in Lumine or other works, but I've seen Mimi. I know Mimi, and Mimi has appeared in other works. But yeah, for those of you who are not familiar with Junji Ito, sorry, I'll kind of talk about it. Junji Ito writes horror, and his horror is very visceral. It's very in your face, like some of the most perturbing kind of images. I mean, that stay with you forever. And yeah, his stories are absolutely great. If you've never read Junji Ito, Fragments of Horror is one of my favorite collections of his. Most of these are collections of shorter works. Like there's like 5 or 6 short stories in there, and they're just wonderful. If you've never tried him out, Fragments of Horror, I think, is a great starting place. It is one of my favorite collections of his works. And yeah, I went ahead and got a couple of these because I think I'm all caught up with everything that I have of his. I'm not really sure. But yeah, guys, there you have it. Over 40 books that I have acquired from the last time that I did a book haul, and I wanted to share them with you. Please let me know, have you read any of these or any of these on your TBR? Should I prioritize some over others? Please let me know. And once again, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you being here. Please consider liking or subscribing or sharing this video with someone that you think might enjoy it so that I can continue bringing you more content like this and continue talking to you about my favorite things, which are books. I think that will do it for me. I think that's it for me. Have a good one, guys. Bye.